So sometimes you wonder why a lot of persons are running away from educational platforms. Lots of persons do not want to go to school, especially youth. And for whatever reason, you will not blame them because the educational system in certain countries are not encouraging. But there is one thing that you cannot get outside of education. There are experiences you cannot have. There are certain persons you will not meet if you were not within the four walls of an educational system. One thing that education does to someone is not just to make you literate, but is to make you build relationships. I realized that over time, relationships I was able to have were during those my school times, during those seasons where I was learning this or I was learning that, and I was together with people that were learning the same thing. That it could be a conventional educational system or a non-conventional educational system. Regardless, you were given the privilege to intermingle with others of the same interest. That I want to learn about graphic design, and so I went to an unconventional platform to learn about it. Now, education in itself can be truncated by certain factors, but regardless of that, you were able to relate with certain persons and build certain relationships. And aside from the graphic design that I went to go learn, I was able to relate with certain persons that taught me something completely outside of graphic design, but was beneficial to my life and destiny. That certain persons got to discover their purpose in life from an educational system. That somehow you do not know what you want to be in future, and you just went to high school and you were done with high school and you came in college and you do not know what you want to be in the future, right? And you knew a few, but you were skeptical and you were not sure. And at that moment, you do not know what to do or how to go about it, right? But the moment you came into an educational system, you got exposed to different things. You met different people with different ideas, different people with different backgrounds, different people with different abilities, different people with different talents. You were part of certain extracurricular activities that involves dancing, singing, swimming, sports, right? Basketballing, and different kind of stuffs. You were able to do different things that somehow, some of those things you hate them with all hatred. Whereas some of these things, the 1 day, the 24 hours, the 30 minutes, the 5 minutes, the 3 seconds you spent in that place made you fall in love with it. That immediately this lady came up and began playing the acoustic guitar. You were so overwhelmed and you were filled with joy, and every bad thing that happened that day that spoiled your day, all of a sudden you were excited. You loved that day because of that marvelously played acoustic guitar that you went for. I am excited, I am happy, and I love to go for what makes me happy. I'm gonna learn this thing and I'm gonna do it, right? And I don't know how it's gonna take me, how long it's gonna take me, how hard it's gonna be like, but I'm gonna give it a try, right? And I'm gonna learn it and I'll see if I'm going to be good at it or I can just at least learn to sing for myself, right? And then you went into it and started learning, you started taking classes. And do you know the sweet part of these things is that every extracurriculum activities within educational systems oftentimes are free. So all you need to do is just pay the fee of willingness. You need to be willing to learn. So you went in there and started taking classes for acoustic guitar, and 3 months down the line you realize that you do not just love this thing, I do not just know how to play it, but there is this joy that the moment you begin playing that thing, the moment you hit that string, the sound that came out from that string heals your soul and take out anything inside of you that must have been a blockage, a pain, a hurt, a sadness, and you dump it by the side and trash it in the bin, and all of a sudden your entire being is filled with joy. And this is something you may not ever find somewhere else, right? Because if you were not in that educational system, and if you were not in that class, and somehow if you're not walking down the corridor and you saw her playing that acoustic guitar, you wouldn't have had that sound, and you wouldn't have wanted to feel not want to, but you wouldn't have felt the way you felt, and you wouldn't have wanted to learn acoustic guitar. That you were in an environment where you do not have an idea of anything, and you never knew something existed, but all of a sudden someone from Colorado just came in and it was just gisting you of how amazing certain of their snacks are, and you're like, yo, you guys make Pringles from flour, how is that possible? And you're like, yo, how is that gonna taste? And you're like, okay, I'm a caterer, but I never heard of this, and I don't know how that's gonna be like, but I would love to have a try. I like to have a bite. So you are kind of like, okay, let's give it a shot. You went in there with him, and probably the person knows how to make it, right? And so this person just kind of like magically made Pringles from flour. And you're like, yo, are you sure this is gonna taste good? And you kind of like, out of curiosity, right? You went in and you took a bite. And after that one bite, you could not resist. You took another bite, and another bite, and another bite. And yes, you were a caterer, but you never knew something like this existed. Yes, you were a caterer, but you will never know if someone else were from another vicinity. Maybe not Colorado, maybe from Chicago. Maybe someone came down from New York, or maybe he's from Africa. And you want to eat something while watching, and you don't want to have popcorns. You don't even want to have spring rolls, right? You want to have a snack that is snacking. And somehow he taught you how to do it, and now you're great at it. Everything you learn from an educational system, you learn it there. You can monetize it. So somehow you graduated and you do not know what to do, but then you were able to learn something. All you need to do is to just add a little bit of professionalism into it, and you're good to go. There are a lot of persons that are demanding that skill, that ability. What an educational system does to you is not to teach you books and courses and histories and mathematics and statistics. It teaches you basic life lessons, basic life maths, and you're not going to get that outside of educational systems. You may get it in probably while related with certain kind of persons, right? But oftentimes you will not get the juicy part if you're not within an educational system, be it a conventional or a not conventional educational system. And I tell you what, as crazy and stressful and exhausting education can be, it is worth it. Believe it. So you are struggling to discover yourself, try giving education a shot. You're going to learn something about you that you never knew existed. Salam.